Good evening and welcome to Press Pass. My name is Masai. We have a panel in studio. We also have a reporter on a story that we'll be focusing on tonight. That is Seto Lale. He brought you the story of a lady who wanted to sell her baby. And there's been a lot of reaction to this, and that's why we want Seto Lale to be on record on why he did the story and where we are right now in terms of the developments. Coming up.
The judge also warned the media against publishing details of the case that would be considered prejudicial.
My friends of the media, let's try to be kind to all of us because I'm the one who is likely to hear this matter.
A stern warning from the courts on how we've been reporting on the story on the murder of Monica Kimani.
Media wanafuatilia, inafika mahali kwa kotini, maneno inaisha hivyo. So actually, I want to say that the media has been doing a good job.
Tendo sio mzuri, lakini inalingana na vile unajua, tukiangalia kwa Biblia tunaona ya kwamba nyakati za mwisho watu watapenda pesa sana.
And we get the views on the Monica Kimani story that we've been covering, as well as the attempt to sell the baby and what you felt we should have done better.
I got to the stadium at midday. And at midday, the stadium was 80% full. And the crowd outside was amazing. You get into the stadium and you feel as though you're covering a real football match.
Right there is Timothy Olobulu, a sports journalist, and his experience in covering the victorious match between Harambee Stars and Ethiopia's Antelopes. And in studio, let me introduce you to my guest, not a stranger to this show, and of course, on this particular time of day on Mondays, we have Erick Odour. He is a sub-editor at the East African newspaper here at the Nation Media Group, but is also the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Journalists. Dr. Wanda Njoya, she told me not to use doctor, but I just have to. She's worked hard to get that. She's a lecturer at Daystar University, as well as a critic on matters that are current affairs and also how we carry them as media. And she has a lot to say and has a great following on Twitter on her comments. Enough about it. She's blushing probably right now. Next to her is Mutemi wa Kiama. He is, some people say, the godfather of activism. He's a social entrepreneur as well as a communications strategist, and I'm so glad to have him on as well. Seto Lale, he is one who is going to be giving us his side of the story from Mandera on the story that was done on Thursday, in fact. That was by him and Wamboi Kurema and also Mr. Otanga, who was behind the camera. And this was on the lady who was trying to sell her baby. And of course, that is Wamboi Kurema there, who was posing as a prospective buyer. Now, this particular story, Caroline Kathure is at the center of it and has been a name in the news since that Thursday night story. NTV told the story of her attempt at selling her baby for 50,000 shillings, and it has gotten many reactions, with some calling it a setup. There are no charges to secure the arrest of Caroline Kathure, the woman who was willing to sell her 8-day-old baby. Caroline and her child are being held briefly at the Children and Gender Protection Unit in Buruburu Police Station, awaiting for her fate to be decided. And we are now joined by Seto Lale, as I've mentioned. He's given us his side of the story. He's on assignment in Mandera, but it was crucial for us to have him. Thank you, after a long day's work, for joining us, Seto Lale. Many are accusing you and the team of setting up this lady Kathure by enticing her with money. What's your response?
Well, thank you so much, Masai. A warm good night here at Mandera County. It's actually very hot until now, but just straight to the discussion. Masai, always a pleasure appearing on Press Pass. And Mark, first of all, viewers or even the people who are responding to this need to understand that this is not just the first time I've been covering issues relating to, baby theft. This is not necessarily, maybe it has not been established as a baby theft incident, but we have been covering issues and stories relating to a baby theft syndicate. It started way back in February this year, and the climax of this was the disappearance of a twin baby at Kenyatta National Hospital some time back. So from the onset, I took up that story, and we were able to realize and to uncover that it was just a part of a wider syndicate, Mark. It has been happening in many, many hospitals. Immediately after that particular story, barely 2 weeks after that particular story, we mentioned about the twin baby who was stolen at Kenyatta National Hospital. Mark Masai, we had 5 women who were arraigned at the Makadara court in relation to another case of baby theft offense. Immediately after that, a week later, Mark Masai, we also had another incident in Tharaka Nithi where, again, a baby was stolen, but the police managed to find that particular baby. We've had stories about babies being gone missing at various hospitals, but in particular, Pumwani Maternity Hospital has been viewed, or rather has been highlighted as the epicenter of this particular syndicate. Remember that in 2015, a couple walked into Pumwani Maternity Hospital expecting twin boys. What they were told is that the boys did not make it and that the babies were born still baby, and so they could not survive. That brought to a lot of controversy because at that particular time, they were not allowed to see the stillborn babies. And so this is something that has been happening. And so what informed us, Mark Masai and our viewers who are watching us right now, is that we really wanted to get to the bottom of this because stories have been told. We've had reported cases at various police stations about babies gone missing, about this particular syndicate ongoing. And so for this particular one, having started covering this story way back in February from Kenyatta National Hospital following the disappearance of a twin baby boy, I wanted to get to the bottom of this. Where does it start? And could the suspect in this particular case, the victim, could she even highlight more in terms of what has been happening at Pumwani Maternity Hospital? Remember also, Mark, that we will be taken into account as journalists sometimes in future when people ask, Setolale, you were a journalist, these things happened for a very long time. Did you even make some effort to get to the bottom of this? So for me, I just did what my conscience tells me was right, and that is to inform and to get to the bottom of all this.
Good background there, Seth. You've given a good background, and if you can hear me just real quick before I get some views from around the country, did you, as a reporter, set this lady up? Did you go out and look for her? How did it play out?
No, we did not do that. It never occurred. This story was executed within 6 hours of having information about it, just from a simple call in the morning. And in fact, I did not pick that phone. I did not know the number. I called on later. And just to be on record, Mark, this particular informer, this particular source of ours, we brought him over at Nation Center, where we told him, we have to put you on record. We wouldn't just believe what you're telling us, and so we're going to record you. Yes. And so it was not pre-planned. I never knew this was going to be as on Wednesday, just 24 hours before we went to Pumwani Maternity Hospital. I had no idea I was going to do that story. In fact, the next day, during the meeting, the meetings that we usually have, our editorial meetings on Thursday morning, I was assigned another story to go and cover the story about the, the Kenya Pipeline Corporation, the managers who are being told to report at the DCI. That was my story. So it was just later that I went and told my boss, my editor, that you know what, I received a call and this is a story that I think we can follow. So it was not pre-planned. I've never met Caroline Kathure. in my
Right.
life ever. I just saw her the day we executed the story.
Okay, Seth, just stand by there. Probably one of my panelists here have a question. And this is something that was written by Abule, who on Twitter, Abdullahi, just one of the responses saying the people to be investigated are the journalists and their man and not the mother of the child. You're the ones who imitated and induced the mother with money. You entice and bring a big story. Sorry, you are the ones who dangled the carrot. Susan Nyabena says, when you entice a woman to sell her baby, then she gets arrested and it becomes news. How do you feel about that? You should support her, get her the necessary help she needs since you enticed her to do so. In terms of helping, getting her help, this was not all about just smearing her name, was it?
No, indeed. What we need to realize is that even before we went to the field, even before we went to execute that particular story, we were on record because also myself, somehow I had a bit extra thought about my informer or the source that was giving the story. And so even after much consultations with my editors, with the investigative desk editor as well, it was important that we put this particular person on record to tell us how he came even with all this. Remember also, Mark, that we have provided material, recorded material to the police showing how this particular informer, this particular source came up or told us his version of the story. And this, we put the entire phone call conversation on record, on air, just to show our viewers that it was not us, it was actually information that we received from a source, Mark.
All right, just stand by there if you can, if you still have bundles. Yes, we work with bundles there. But perhaps as my panel was following your explanation and have watched the story, have read about it, I'd want to get some quick responses now. And I'll start with you, Mutemi. As you followed this story, do you think there's any, validity to what people are saying that we went wrongly about it?
I like to look at it much from a different angle. For example, I like to, if it's just the clip that was shown during the news, there was no information as to who the gentleman who, the whistleblower was, what his background was, where he got this information from, and then beyond the story of this lady. If he was like exposing a baby theft ring, or what other incidents had he encountered? There's lack of depth in the story in that way. For example, if this lady was selling her own baby, was she selling her own baby or was she selling someone else's baby?
It is documented that she had the documents with, for the baby, just not the name. She hadn't named the baby from the hospital, so she had just been cleared.
So the story doesn't say whether it's her baby. Actually, the promos say it's her baby, but the story itself doesn't say whether it's her baby. At least what I've watched, I don't know whether there was a follow-up on that. And then, what's the larger narrative? Why, beyond that story, why didn't the reporter go to the larger narrative? Like, what induced her to get in? Whether if she's in business of selling babies, what's her story? And is she working in cahoots with people within the hospital? Because I saw part of the clip says this gentleman who was a whistleblower going to get the birth notification.
Mr. Yusuf,
Mr. Yusuf. So who is he working with? How is he able to get birth notification? He's not even a mother or a father of that child. Like, the story is a bit shallow.
In terms of blowing the cap or, just exposing this, would you say it served its purpose? Then we can look further into the leads he's bringing up?
I'm not sure it did because, the thing about motherhood is that it gets a lot of sympathy from the audience. So even the way they didn't report that a woman came to and offered a baby for sale. They said a mother. So once you say a mother, the audience shifts to the mother's side. and then assumes that this mother was selling her own baby and that her story is true. We don't know, like Mutemi is saying, we don't know whether the baby was hers, even though she had the paperwork. You know, all those investigations were not done, but because the report was shown as a mother selling her baby,
yes,
and the fact that most Kenyans know that women are poor and they have few options, so of course the public is going to sympathize with the mother for selling her baby. So like Mutemi says, it was too little to go on, and especially for such an important story, because babies and motherhood touch our soul.
Yes.
So you can't just report it based on very few facts.
Okay. And
yeah.
But in terms of, I don't know, first of all, as you know, a journalist, KUJ Secretary General, from your stance, I'm sure there's many people who've commented and brought it to your attention what they felt about this story being done and how it was carried forward. What's your first initial reaction?
I think I will say that having listened to Seth and
yes,
what he has said, he has given us a very good background on what informed his decision to run the story as it was. However, I believe that Seth ought to have also considered the ethical standard and the conduct of journalism
and in this case?
country. That is, there is what is called misrepresentation.
Okay.
A journalist is not supposed to guise himself or herself disguise himself or herself when is investigating the story, when clearly there is no public interest in that. But having listened to him, he's explained that there was a public interest matter in this one, and therefore actually there was justification for him to disguise himself as someone who wanted to buy a baby so that he could get the story. So, however, the story, if you look at the story, it is actually focusing so much on the lady. And it's not focusing so much on other characters or other people who are also involved in the story. In this case, if you look at the story, they were talking about the brokers who are yes, involved, the Kimani hospital. But the story ended up maybe just focusing on the lady. So I suppose the story probably would have taken maybe 2 or 3 more days to give us details and more information okay, about the syndicate. Because hearing at what he's saying that there have been a lot of stories and a lot of complaints about babies being stolen from hospitals and babies disappearing from hospitals, which is true.
Yes.
So it was not possible for him to use one, because like even for him, he says that actually his assignment was a different story. Then later in the day, he was assigned this story. Mm-hmm. So I don't think if he had enough time to do a comprehensive story that actually answers all the questions that are being asked right now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and as he's just said, he only had 6 hours to work yes, with this, and there was pressure for him to at least deliver something. The desire would have been, and he explained it, and he can perhaps tell us a bit more, that we could hold it and give more later. But then you have this information, and the police are holding her right now because of what we've done. Perhaps as, you know, in terms of drawing attention to this, were we still wrong to go on air with this story?
Yeah, but because if you look at the situation as it is, who is the complainant? I mean, there's no one who is complaining right now at a particular moment. Because suppose police could have been involved from the beginning, so the police begin investigations. Also, they even to get into the matter, who are other players who are involved? You know, police were called into this story at the last end, towards the end, that we are following in this story. Because if you look at the story, they are saying that when they got this story, they went, met the lady, they were at a restaurant where they were sitting there, then they informed the police and the children's office who came much later into the story. So suppose they involved the police from the beginning, so that police can also help in investigations.
That we did, because
yes,
we went to the police officers to the scene of meeting this lady that is Kathure. And just before you give me a thought, if you may allow me just to sample some of the views that people gave us from this particular story.
I think NTV was fair for government to find legal solutions to assist due to poverty reasons, to assist the mother to the child.
The business of selling human being is not good. So for those who have been doing it underground, to be aware of it, and that was a right way of the NTV to do so.
NTV to report a case of a mother who intended to sell a child was right in reporting, because it is a right of media to make all people awareness and access of the information.
I allowed the media for highlighting these issues so that the ills of society can be highlighted, the plight of Kenyans can be highlighted, like in this case.
First of all, me being a mother, that was so unfair. The fact that life in Kenya imekuwa so high, I bet the lady angetafuta another means of getting money. Selling a child for 50,000, that is so. I don't agree with that.
Tendo sio mzuri, lakini inalingana na vile inajua. Tukiangalia kwa Biblia tunaona ya kwamba nyakati za mwisho watu watapenda pesa sana, na hii sasa inakamilisha wakati huo.
Mimi kitu cha kwanza ambapo kinatakana lazima paga uangalie, ujue ya kwamba kiliyomfanya auze mtoto ni nini.
Sasa mtu kama mimi pia niko na mtoto, na mimi siwezi danganywa nikaenda kuuza mtoto sababu ya hali yangu, siwezi lea. Mimi nang'ang'ana kivyo vyote nitafute mtoto wangu riziki.
So most of those views there were quite positive, and you know, people saying that it should have been reported. They are actually more on the mother, as you said. The focus has been on the mother, and that tag we put there, 50,000 shillings. So there's a shock effect, and that's what really got people. Mutemi, you wanted to say something, you know, as
I saw a similar story on, I think, Citizen, and the thing is, the police were involved. For example, what you're talking about, like who posed as the buyers and all that. The police posed as the buyers, CID officers, and the focus was not more on, for example, from your tag, as you've just said, the 50,000 shillings. You know, and when I even listened to the clip, we were talking about 70,000 and all that, so I don't even know where the 50,000 came
the bargain, she called it at 70,000 first, and then she agreed to sell it for 50,000.
So that is not the story. The story is, why would a mother sell the child? It's not how much, whether it's 20 shillings or even 100 or even 1,000,000 shillings.
That doesn't draw your attention that she was willing to?
No, it does. It's clickism. It's clickism. It's sensationalist. It's you know, it's tabloid. It's not NTV. It's not Nation Media Group. That's my issue there.
Okay. As we look at this picture that I have here, and Seth will respond in telling us whether he would do anything different, and perhaps if he engaged the police from the get-go, which I believe he did. Wafula, you say, you actually send this picture, and you say, you know, what Seth Olale did equals to this journalist who took this picture, alijitakia na hakujali yule mama. This picture is very popular and has been. I believe this was in Ethiopia during the drought and hunger, and this child went on and died. As you could see that, you know, the bird there preying on the baby, just waiting for that child to die. And there's been questions about, was that ethical? But he captured the moment, and this really brought it to the global fore in terms of doing something for Ethiopia. Many people will question what was exactly done, but it brought the attention to the world platform. Do you think it's actually fair to equal this, if you've seen the picture, Ondia?
Oh, God. I mean, that picture should not be shown again. It's already horrifying. But if I'm not wrong, that journalist lost his cool. If I'm not wrong, he committed suicide.
Yes, he did, yes.
So I think I'm not saying what happened, but it's possible that he took it because of the shock at how much hunger had ravaged Ethiopia.
Yes.
He wasn't using the picture to bring to attention the plight of Ethiopians. Oh, please, Bill Gates, come and give us money. But it was the shock of inhumanity that we had reached, that we can let a child die, that the world can let a child die, and for a voucher to wait for that child. I think that is completely different from what we are talking about here. Here, when I read the story, the print story of this issue. It sounded like the mother was the one who came to the journalists, offered the baby, and instead of asking, do you need help? Why are you this desperate? What is happening that you'd want to sell your child? Then they call the police, and the next thing we know, the woman is arrested. And that's why the Kenyan audience was saying, didn't you even find out what desperation would drive her to want to sell her child? I think that was the thing that Kenyans were disputing, that she approaches you to sell a baby, and it doesn't occur to you to ask, but why? You know, where are you that you would be forced to do this?
Okay.
So the criminal aspect that Seth is talking about, that part I didn't know that was the connection. I'm just talking about what I saw in the story.
Okay.
And for me, a humane thing to do would have been to ask the mother, if it happened the way it's said in the story, the humane thing would have been to ask the mother, why? But why? And you know, she even said, I don't have enough money, I have 2 other children. So how come that storyline was not followed, and instead we were following these other criminals, syndicates?
On the second day, that's what we reported, that in fact she had 2 other kids, and we did go to her while she was still at Buruburu holding station, where she said, I was just desperate, I have 2 other children, it was just desperation that brought me there. So in terms of, you know, this is a developing story.
Yes, Mark.
You know, how would you treat it?
Yes, I think it's a developing story. First of all, I'll agree with Seth that first of all, Seth needed to tell the society that this is where we are.
And it's this bad.
Yes, this is bad. We reach a situation whereby now mothers are selling their babies because they cannot afford to take care of these babies. So the intention was good. And I think the question is now maybe is being a developing story, and now the follow-ups.
Yes.
Probably now we need more follow-ups, given that Seth has explained that on that particular day, he already had another assignment, which probably had delivered. And when the story actually broke out and he needed to follow it, he didn't have enough time to answer all the questions that are being raised in this particular story. So I think, even up to date, I feel Seth still has enough time to go and do follow-up on these stories, just so that the remaining questions can also be answered.
All right.
However, like I said, but if you go to the Code of Conduct for the Practice of Journalism on ethical standard, there is a line that talks about misrepresentation when a journalist is looking for a story, whereby a journalist is not supposed to disguise himself or herself as someone else when you are looking for a story, if there is no justification in a matter.
But in this one, there's justification.
Yeah, there's a public interest story, like he had said. That is a matter that he has been following since February, because we've had similar stories where mothers have been selling babies or losing babies to brokers, like in this particular matter.
Okay.
So what we will expect from Seth is that he should continue with this story. Let him not drop the story. Let him continue giving us more stories and different angles as they break, so that people can get to know what it is. Like I was saying, that if you look at some, like leave about the picture that you've shown that took place, that was taken in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Even here in Kenya, there was a picture that actually, it was a very good picture that was taken by the media. But people didn't see the significance and the message that the media was trying to send across. There was, when demolitions were being carried out somewhere in Kimani, there was a man who actually was carrying a huge chunk of ugali. But people said that is now, we are now moved from Githeri media to ugali media. But that picture was just showing Kenya that this is how things are bad in our country, where ugali is now a matter of life and death. That this guy, what he saw, that he could run away from that particular scene, was only ugali. But now the middle class who can afford ugali, they can't see the significance of that picture.
Yes.
So the situation is, it is bad, whereby we are having families, people are having families, but they cannot take care of the family. So in the event that maybe a mother sees that she has a baby here, whom she cannot take care of, then she may be like to look at different means.
And this is a picture, real quick before I release.
Add, we need to take care of women's mental health, because going through childbirth and having a child is it's a very heavy experience. And so women can be disoriented immediately the child is born. Okay. And so cartels are taking advantage of that vulnerability to now offer whatever services are being offered. So we also need to take care of the mothers who have just given birth, because they are extremely vulnerable to all these reporting, and they can make very rash decisions which would normally not be made. So maybe you need a woman journalist to also help Seth in terms of the sensibility of what is happening with the women.
And Merab from Daily Nation is actually following this, Elizabeth Merab.
Can I add just quickly? Yeah. So there's also the angle of, did the story have to break if it's an investigative piece?
Yes.
It's not like the road accident that happened in Kericho the other day that it's current news. It has to break there and then. This is an investigation. We've been investigating since February. Then why couldn't you have waited for 2 more days to get the additional information?
Yes.
And on the issue of Kericho, there's NTV also did something that I was not personally very happy with. There was this lady who was interviewed live, and she had just lost 2 relatives, I think 2 kids or something, and she was being interviewed in her agony. And I felt that was unethical also.
Right. No, but I believe that breaking a story, and even this story was not, there's no big deal about that. I think breaking the story and airing on that day, there was no problem with that.
Okay.
What we ought to do as journalists is that we break a story, then the following day, you must make sure that you are always giving and trying all the loose ends in that story as the story develops.
Yes. Seth Olale, thank you for standing by for quite a while, and this has been a long day for you. And I just need to get this from you in terms of, with the feedback that we have right now, and with hindsight, and with the context and the background that you have that didn't manage to make its way in the 6-minute piece that you did, how can we move forward with this story?
Well, thank you so much, Mark, and I really appreciate and respect all the remarks that have been made there by the panelists. Actually, that was just part 1. And I agree that, we were working towards something. I'm just saying this because now this is coming up, and of course, we have a lot of information coming in. Some of it I won't just mention right here because it's also part of a piece that we are compiling together. But definitely what also we didn't show, or rather what we didn't highlight, is that there was close to an hour session, a counseling session, by an officer from the Child Rights Department right there. In fact, when the response team arrived, that is the cops together with the Children's Rights Department officers arrived, the police opted to stay away. And I'm on record saying this, they didn't even come out of the car because they say that this involves a child, and so it is proper that the Children's Department, just handle it. But because it is an incident, it is what they say, it cannot just go like that. It has to be recorded. It has to be a case that is booked because it's going to be showed on air. What happened is that there was up to close to an hour session of counseling from the Children's Rights Department, cancelling this particular woman who said that she is the mother of the child. And of course, also, I just want also to highlight that, yes, maybe not enough time, but of course, definitely there is something coming up because we're receiving a lot of intelligence, a lot of information in regards to this particular incident with an open mind. Remember that police, according to the statements they were receiving, they said that it is part of a wider syndicate, and they're saying that they have to prove that even this particular woman is the mother of the child. They have to know, because even the birth notification itself didn't indicate the name of the baby at all. And so the police are treating this as maybe just part of a wider scheme. But going forward, of course, we'll do what is like, for example, highlight all what went up to the end of this particular story. But what we just highlight was just to break it. But there is more coming in what we are going to very soon, Mark.
Setolale, appreciate your time on Press Pass and taking it very well and positively. And that's what we do here on Press Pass, a good critique and moving forward and growing. Job Isaac Mureithi says, I do not fault Olale in this case. That was a starting point, and I agree that the story should be developed further. If he hadn't acted, the child could have been sold. Importantly, it is out here, and we are talking about it. The downside, the cartels may have gone under. Just to remind you that the lady is still being held, and the baby, that is Caroline Kathure, is being held at the Buruburu police station, the segment at least for women with babies, and the police are waiting for, you know, a formal complaint against her on this particular case, and so they are well and under custody and the watchful eye of the authorities. In a story we will follow. We take a break here. We'll be back with the Monica Kimani murder story and investigations as they have been continuing. Welcome to Press Pass, back to Press Pass. And early on, I had introduced the angle of the warning that came out from the courts last week. And this, we could just play real quick clips here of what the judge had to say. On Wednesday this past week, Justice James Wakiaga warned the media against reporting what has not been tendered in court in the ongoing case over the murder of Monica Kimani. The judge issued the warning on Wednesday when he set the date for bail hearing from the two suspects accused of killing Kimani, that is journalist Jackie Maribe and her fiancé Joseph Irongo. Now the bail hearing, of course, has been set for Wednesday, and this is a bit of what played out in court.
High Court Justice James Wakiaga, who will now adjudicate the Monica Kimani murder case,
he's setting the rules of engagement which now appear to brush the Kenyan media the wrong way.
This even as Justice James Wakiaga warned the media against writing stories with links to the murder of Monica Kimani.
So that was a stern warning, and the story is still developing, and we're still following up on it. And we got some opinions from around the country on the coverage of this story, where you know, Jackie Maribe has been mentioned a lot, as well as Joseph Irongo in the murder case of Monica Kimani, an investigation that is active. It's a tricky affair in reporting on an active case in court. This is what they had to say.
The thing that we can say that the media has covered everything that we people want, and it is exposing other evidences that other investigating bodies might have not known. I want to admit that the case is well done, and seemingly the real murderers will be found.
Niliona kama media mpaka sasa wanajaribu ku-unearth, yani kujaribu kufukua mambo, kwa sababu hivi majuzi pia tumeona yule jamaa wa GSU ameshikwa, na yote imekuja ni kwa sababu ya media, kwa sababu kama ingekuwa ni investigation kutoka kwa media personalities hatungeweza kupata ukweli ama habari kama hizi.
It is the duty of media to make people to get access to follow the proceedings on how the case has been taken.
Ninaona kwamba hawa media wanafanya, na ningeomba kwamba waendelee kuchimbua zaidi na wawe protected, kwa sababu hawa wanapitia katika changa fulani wanaofanya mambo kama hayo. Kwa hivyo tafadhali sana wafanye kazi yao na wapatie uhuru ya kuweza kuchimbua zaidi mambo mengine ambao inafichika.
Naona watu wengi wanawawa, makesi zinaenda kwa kotini, baadaye inaisha bila kujulikana ukweli ilienda wapi. Media wanafuatilia, inafika mahali kwa kotini, maneno inaisha hivyo. So actually I want to say that the media has been doing a good job, and I want to tell the government that they should actually support them by giving them protection.
Kotini mostly huwa wanalalia sana upande wa media. Kwa upande wangu mimi naona media inafanya kazi yao vile inastahili, na kila wakati unajua wakifanya kazi yao huwa wanalaumiwa kwa mambo yenye wanaonekana kama wanalalia upande moja.
Media is really doing its work well, and anything that is actually in the court
okay, I would say that we leave it to the God to decide. But apart from that, I think media is becoming fair. You can even look from their own, from this case, that it is their own being accused. But instead of them hiding, they are exposing each and everything.
Mutemi is laughing at the clips that we're playing. He says they're a bit too positive. And for the record, we don't coach them on what to say. We ask it randomly with our correspondents, who I appreciate their effort in bringing these thoughts from around the country. But you could give your response from what you've heard. Sorry.
I think you don't coach them, but you do a series of interviews, then you decide what to air. So from whatever you've collected. So, but I'm not implying anything unethical in that. But I think in this case, it's a delicate balance, which you understand.
Yes.
Because I mean, sub judice is it's in the law. If a matter is before the court, then there's a limit to what you can talk about the proceedings, especially as media. You can report so that you don't want to influence the judges, you don't want to influence the witnesses who are living in the same society where this case is going on, you know. Then, but also there's the issue of then the public need to know, which is, I think, the balance then a journalist or the media house has to make. But also on top of that, there's a competition that now you're competing with social media, which is largely setting the agenda. There's no control or ethical control that maybe a media house like NMG has to go through, has to consider in terms of what people post on their Twitter or Facebook. Personally, I've tried very much, I have my own platforms on social media. I've tried very much not to engage on this issue because I don't know what the story is.
Okay.
And I'm not an investigator. I don't have the capacity to investigate these matters. So I've shared one or two things, but mostly reactions from people. NMG has, you know, it's a billion Kenya shillings company, has the capacity to investigate this matter. I'd expect that maybe a media house like yourselves or the other main media houses in this country would put resources to get to the bottom of this issue and know what to report and not know what to report. But what I've seen in the reporting in the last, the time the story has been out, the story has been out, and the governor, the Migori governor case has been from a communication consultant expert angle. It looks like there's someone who's pushing this narrative. These stories are being pushed to be in the papers, on TV.
Like a source feeding us.
Yeah, like what you call what are we being distracted from? And I think we are being distracted from the 16% VAT. That's my impression. The 16%,
8% it was revised.
20% rise. Nobody's talking about the rise in the in airtime, in M-Pesa transactions and that kind of thing, which is affecting the ordinary Kenyan. But we are busy, how many murders have happened in the last 3 weeks in this country? Why are you reporting these two? How many murders happened last year? Baby Pendo, Msando. Why didn't we go in depth into it the way you've done, this in the last 3 weeks?
You don't feel that Msando got as much coverage as?
I mean, right
it's
now,
an example you put out
there's a story that is breaking every day or 2 days, about this Monica Kimani case.
Yes.
Why didn't we have the same when the person in charge of an election that will determine our future for the next 5 years dies?
Okay.
And that story has never, the Msando case has never even been investigated up to now.
Right.
Why are we not going there?
A good perspective that he brings in. Dr. Wanda, I don't know what you have to say. First of all, generally, to the response of what the judge put out there and what you felt as you followed and perhaps what he says.
This story is so heavy.
Yes.
First, the gentleman and no lady who have talked about how the media has covered the story, I can't tell the difference between their interest in the sensation around the story or the actual investigation and the case. And I think this is actually, for me, the problem. We can't tell whether the media is following the sensation of a big shot lady who had big connections getting caught in a murder case, or the actual murder of a young woman and the need for justice. I think those are the lines in terms of the media that are more blurred than the lines between investigating the case and whether it is interfering with police investigations and legal process. Yes. For me, in fact, I don't even know whether the media cares about the legal process. What they want is to sensationalize and to get the headlines, because social media is taking the mainstream media for a ride. And so the first to hit the post with a good story, with pictures of these ladies on the front, on the headlines, is what is going to capture the imagination. The other thing I'm a bit disturbed about is the fact that these ladies, the ladies involved, both the victim and the suspect, are women who are fairly well off. They are not the Kathure from Meru trying to sell a baby. They are fairly well off. There are pictures of them, especially the suspect, you know, with powerful people. And so it seems that this case, the interest in the case from the public is driven by this interest to see a woman who had risen up the ranks, you know, probably coming down, we don't know. But I think there has been so much sensationalism driving this case. We have forgotten that we're actually talking about the murder of someone, and that needs to be redressed, and there must be justice for that person. I think that seems to have fallen by the wayside, and people are really interested in the suspect. And also, I suspect also in her relationship, because sex sells, so we always want to know who is in love with who, what does that mean for them. So I think these are the tantalizing details that the public is focused on, and the media should not follow the public. I'm sorry, it's very hard, especially when you want to get the headlines and to get money from the papers, but I think I think the media needs to step back and leave the public to its own devices. On social media? Yeah, I mean, let there be other ways to channel this excitement, other than the media feeding into it and trying to make the headlines out of it. I think the public, I'm sorry to say, with all our contradictions and our prejudices, they are feeding into this excitement about the case, and I think the media should not follow the public. Sometimes the public can be wrong.
The media should be agenda setting.
Yes,
for us.
Dicey one as well, because we are part of the society, you know, and just detaching yourself from what is popular and what is not can become a heavy one. Some heavy words thrown here: competition that we need to look out for, and that is, you know, one of the forces. There's a distraction element he's thrown there, sensationalization of stories, and then, you know, just focusing on the personalities in this story.
Mike, I don't agree with some of the sentiments that have been made by my colleagues here on the panel. Number one, the media is guided by the truth, and I don't think if there is any competition between the mainstream media and the social media, because what people are looking for is the truth. Nothing like like sensational media or stories being sensationalized, like they say. And I believe that actually Justice Wakiaga must also be called out. And you know, as the various institutions in the media industry, actually we are preparing a petition to the Judicial Service Commission against the sentiments that were made by Justice Wakiaga on that particular matter. Because journalists do not sit on the bench. It's only the judges who sit on the bench, and this particular matter is Justice Wakiaga who is on the bench on this particular matter, and no media house or journalist has tried to influence him on the decision that he's going to make. Having said that, and I also know that journalists are well versed with the processes and the procedures in court and how courts are covered and how matters that are before court are being covered. And I don't think if there is any particular incident that Justice Wakiaga actually singled out, that the media actually went against the law of sub judice, like Kiama has said. And I know that in a few years ago, when Speaker Kenneth Marende used to make a ruling when the judiciary wanted actually to stop Parliament from debating on some particular matters, he said that the law on sub judice cannot be used to stop people from talking about issues of public interest, because here is the public interest. Even the courts are also acting in the best interest of the public to ensure that justice is done. And therefore, that rule cannot be used actually to stop the journalists from doing their work. I know journalists know very well that a matter that has already been prosecuted in court, a document that has not been filed in court cannot be used in a story that already is in court. So we don't know where Justice Wakiaga was coming from. Unless
everything that we've gone on record with, whether on paper or on broadcast, it's based on documents that presented in court.
So that's what I'm saying, that we wanted to know, and actually in our petition we want to know where Justice Wakiaga was coming from. If there is any particular incident that actually has been pointed out, that the media went out of their way to quote a document or a story or any material that was used in a story that has not been filed in court, then action can be taken, because in the media there is a procedure of how you can raise and file complaints against the media houses or against individual journalists.
And we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yes, and there's this issue then of, you know, whether this influences the outcome of the case. Justice Wakiaga had the concern there that either side, whether prosecution or defense, someone is feeding the media with information that would influence the outcome of this case. Wasn't that the position?
Yes, Michael, I will tell you, like I've said, that journalists know the procedures. We know the processes. So if anybody tries to smuggle a document or into a newsroom, if somebody tries to influence the media to use a document that has not filed in a case, because previously this case had not been prosecuted, but now the case has been prosecuted in court, the suspects are actually taken plea, and therefore the matter is seized off by the court. And therefore we have professionals in the newsroom. What I'm saying is that we have professionals in the newsroom who know their work very well. We can't accept a document that has not been filed in court as the basis of our story.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I get the legalese and the journalist ethics and all this, but these, even the previous story we've talked about, these are stories that have been driven by a lot of emotion because of the particular personalities involved in the case. So we can't just say that it's just any other case and the journalists are handling the evidence. Okay, the fact remains the person who is in the middle of this particular story is a personality who has been on social media and mainstream media for a long time, and so there's a sense of entertainment, sorry to say, that is coming at the expense of, sorry to say because I'm the woman here, that is coming at the expense of us feeling as women that this is about a moralizing for us, about our behavior, about who we hang out with, about who we fall in love with and who we want to marry. I've been to 2 events right up to today, 2 events where people are giving advice on marriage and everything based on this particular court case. So this case is more than just, and I'm sorry to say, maybe if we had more women in the newsroom, let's see how they would talk about this story, because this thing is impacting us in ways that go beyond the law. They are impacting how we are being perceived morally and what our choices are. And that's why I'm so disturbed by the sensation around this case, because I don't think the sensation is about law. I think it's about the fact that it's 2 women, fairly young, fairly good looking.
I think
and well known.
This is what I said. This is what I said, that if you look at, we've had 2 cases here. We've had Sharon case and now Monica Kimani's case, where in Sharon case the suspect is a man, And even in Monica Kimani now, there are 2 suspects. There is a man and a woman there. But if you look at the number of headlines that Obado made, I believe that are more than what Jackie Maribe has made on this particular story, if you look at it. Actually, Obado was on headline for almost 2 weeks consecutively. On a consecutive day, Obado was on headline. So I think the issue is not about gender here. The issue is about the facts and the story as it develops. It depends on how journalists are being given or are able to dig deep and get information. Journalists, and I would wish to know if there is anything that has been written in these particular stories that is not true and that is not right. That will say that this story was said about Jackie, this story was said about Joey, this story was said about Obado, that so far has turned out to be wrong or to be false. So the journalists are being guided by the truth and the stories and as they are being investigated by the investigative agencies. Journalists don't investigate these stories. And like Kiama was saying that, we've not been writing more about Musando. Probably what we can say, what we will be saying is that maybe CID and those who are in charge with the investigations have not done enough job as far as investigating the circumstances that led and how Musando was murdered, and therefore they have not given us more stories. But for us, as journalists, we go by the facts as they are and as they come. Right. So if there is no facts or no evidence that have been given in a particular matter, journalists cannot manufacture, we cannot fabricate the issues and come up with the facts. But if there is what have been written so far in these particular stories, which you think it is not true, it's good now to call out journalists that say, by the way, you've said this about this particular suspect, but so far it has come out that it's not true.
Okay.
I want to slightly disagree with my brother. I support freedom of press.
Yes.
And I also do not think courts should decide what we speak about and what we don't speak about. But I do see, in this age of 140 characters and sensationalism, as Wanda said, there's the case of, I think what the judge was addressing was the case of prosecuting the case before even any. So we have documents that have been filed. The case has not been heard. It's not been even, we've not had witnesses give evidence. The prosecutors haven't, they haven't cross-examined anybody. So there's not been any ruling. Yet, if you look at what is on the media, we already have a guilty verdict. I don't want to say who appears guilty, but I think what the judge was saying, innocent until proven guilty. That's the same thing we did with the ICC case, with the president and the deputy president, Uhuru. And they even ran for president. So as it is right now, Jackie Maribe in the court of public opinion and Joey are guilty of having killed Monica. That is what the case that has been prosecuted by the media. And I think that's what the judge is saying. Let us listen to the witnesses in court. Let's examine these guys. Let due process go and then report after that. So I think that is fair. I don't think, the headlines have said judge tries to gag media. I don't think he's trying to gag. We just ask for caution. I think you're a veteran journalist, you know that judges have actually stopped media from reporting on certain cases. Yes. They've actually given orders in court. I don't think this is what we've seen. I just think media lashed out in self-defense, of course, expected. But I don't think the judge said he said the media cannot report on the case.
And also, I think the media also needs to know that they are not the only ones looking for the truth. Even the court is looking for the truth. Yes. So you need to give the court the space, do your thing, your journalism way, let the court also look for the truth. We are all looking for the truth. But I think there are many things to say about why this case is so sensational, and I don't know whether we have to wait for later, but we are reporting in a context, and the context is already biased.
Get
in
this
certain ways.
Get this from Lifeholic Mz. You say the media must highlight stories like Monica's and Sharon's murder because fact is in Kenya there's always a fear that cases involving celebs, if not highlighted, are forgotten and justice for victims is never realized. And Eleni Kumulika. Another one, just briefly, Mwalimu Kahato, you say the court's beneficiaries of media agitation for freedom should be wary of the Stockholm Syndrome and play into powers that be, and you know it starts subtly, then bang. Moy's days are back. As Mutemi has said, we shouldn't really just label this as, you know, gagging the media. Of course, we jump to our, you know, safety and to our defense a lot, which we will always do. Believe that's the case. But we'll come to conclude this particular issue on how we should go about it moving forward, because even on Wednesday, they're back for bail hearing in court. And then we'll go to the issue of complaint, how you should file a complaint if you feel Mark has done matope, makaratasi on air, what you should do to bring him to book or anyone else. Stay with us.
Different people have different ways of putting on their socks. Some don't really care which way is up. Some apply the scrunch and pull on method. Some are experts at the super smooth glide on. And some are into the pincer grip on. While others, well, others are just complicated. Luckily, there is only one way to put on a condom. And it's as easy as putting on a sock. You pinch the tip, place it on, and roll it down. PPR. That easy.
Chance doesn't come knocking for you. You go knocking for it. Every day is our cup final, and the 90 minutes starts now. This is Chance, invented in Africa.
Welcome back to Press Pass, and we were discussing, you know, on the back of what Justice Wakiaga had said in terms of a warning to media houses on what they put out in the reportage on the case, on the investigations following the murder of Monica Kimani, and of course, yes, the suspects that have been named, Jackie Maribe and Joseph Irongo. I just want us to conclude on this before we move forward in terms of complaints that are brought to media houses and journalists when people feel slighted in how we have carried forward our work. work. And Mutemi, you earlier said that we haven't really, I mean, why are we giving much more attention to this than we did to someone like Msando? So should we stop at this moment in this story?
I think, again, like the first story that we discussed, the child, the issue of the child, that we need much more in-depth investigation, especially from a media house like Nation Media Group and the resources that you have.
Okay.
You can't be reporting the same way Weekly Citizen is reporting, or the same way your own tabloids are reporting. You know, NTV, Nation, the Daily Nation cannot report the way, you know, the Nairobian and other sensationalist rags are reporting. So we expect, I think what you're finding is a demand for more, even especially in this age of fake news, in this this age of, you know, information changing every half an hour, every hour. There's new information coming. That we need like you know, a moral an information compass. There is a moral compass somewhere we can go back to and say, you know, people usually say, I want a link. Where did you hear that? Send me a link. Then if I come to NTV or I go to Nation and I can't find a link that verifies that narrative, then what are you doing? So you're saying, we don't say don't report. You're saying we need you to employ your resources to actually, you know, give us the more factual information.
Okay, and to you, Dr. Wandia, there is a lot of connotations that come out, but you can't quite call it, you know, or blame it on mainstream media as much as it is social media. But people still throw the blame at us and say you've gone off, you know, the case and the truths and the facts, and you've gone on, you know, character assassination. So you have the Slay Queen kind of narrative that comes in. What do you have to say about this?
I think the mainstream media, I think you need to get a spine and stop being threatened by social media, because what we get from social media is not what we look for in the mainstream media, as Mutemi is saying. We expect more solid, in-depth reporting from NTV and Daily Nation, and maybe you haven't figured out, maybe you haven't figured out how to monetize that, and so you feel that you must get clickbait, but you have to say more than what we expect to see in the tabloids and in social media. And you know, in social media, there are also a lot of insults, including the one that I've been accused of making. So, you know, you can't compare yourself to us. You are not us, you're a media house, you have certain standards, you have ethics, you have professional, you know, standards. So you must report in that way so that when we come to you, we can have a benchmark and say that this is the kind of story we want on this kind of issues. But yeah.
Your annual turnover is how much as NMG?
I don't have the figures with me.
But it's billions.
Yes.
What is the annual turnover for Sipten Nyakundi? You know, for you to be competing with him.
Yes.
I think we are losing direction here. Yeah. And from where I sit, and as a journalist and also as SG of KEJ, I've never seen a situation where the mainstream media and the social media actually are competing. These are two worlds apart. It's only that some people who are in social media want to be seen to be competing with the mainstream media in terms of breaking stories on social media, and they want to make the public know, they want to know that, you know, we are telling you this because you not see this in the mainstream media, which is not true. And I think the mainstream media is doing a very good job in terms of doing verification and in-depth analysis of all these issues. It's only that probably, you know, we see things from different perspectives. And people will always have opinion on a particular matter. And people, even lawyers, I'm told that if you go to a court and you ask lawyers to give an interpretation of one sentence, and if you have 10 lawyers, you'll have 10 interpretations from the 10 lawyers. Because people have, let me just finish. Yes. Yeah. So people will always have different opinions on a particular matter. But what I know, and from where I sit, the mainstream media is not being sensational in everything that they do. It's only that maybe people ask that, and that is true. Somebody will ask that, how come the mainstream media has been having a lot of information and giving so much coverage on these two past murder cases, other than other murder cases that have been there, and Mutemi said that. But like I said, the media, we do not do investigations. If police have done investigation and they have given us a story on one particular case, yeah, no, I'm saying no, not criminal, not criminal investigation.
Okay.
Let me say criminal investigation. When a crime has been committed,
yes,
it's police that actually do the investigations and tell us that based on our investigation, this is what we find out. So if investigations have been shoddy that have been done by police and there's no information that is forthcoming, I don't think if it's right for us to blame the media for not highlighting on that particular, because there's nothing to report it about.
Okay.
But if the investigations have been thorough and police are generous and very philanthropic in terms of sharing information with the media, we shouldn't blame the media. Actually, we should be asking the media, you go and give us more information.
Personally, I drive an opinion on my social media platforms. I give my opinion, and I share other people's opinions. I amplify other people's opinions, including Kimani and others. So, but I'm not a journalist, I'm not an investigative journalist, I'm not a policeman. So we expect at least my opinion would differ from NTV's opinion, because NTV would have much more in-depth way of, better ways of verifying it. So we're not saying we should not have an opinion. And in fact, media actually says, you have, for example, in the nation, you say opinion piece.
Yes,
you have your space where there's an opinion, editorial, opinion, and you differentiate between facts and factual information and opinion. And I think there's space for that. So you're not saying don't report your opinions, but label it as opinion.
Yes. All right.
But you see, when you're competing, because as much as you're protesting, we operate in that space, and we see media, trying to compete with social media in terms of breaking headlines and that. And severally, mainstream media has retracted stories, have deleted, and
we are very fast. From social
media.
Yeah,
and we have the screenshots.
Yes.
So
no need to bring them out right now. No, but you see, when we need to retract, we do retract. We verify.
What happened is that that's a half-baked journalist. If you pick a story from the media, from the social media, then you don't do thorough due diligence and verification. Then you go ahead and post some media.
You have an editor.
Then there's a
editor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is there's an issue there. That's a problem. If you can pick a story as a journalist from social media, then you post it and own it as a journalist, then there is a problem there. There's a professional problem.
All right. On that point, this sounds like an episode in and of itself. But there's something else I wanted to bring to the attention of the panelists in terms of when complaints are there against Mark, against NTV, against Daily Nation, the East African, what is the procedure to be followed? Because it was something that personally as a journalist was a bit of a concern. And this was directed at my colleague in the profession, Jeff Koinange. By the way, no, mudslinging or even witch hunt on him. I respect his work over the years. But there was the interview with Paul Malong that got a lot of reactions in terms of whether this was, a stage-managed interview to, sanitizing. And there was a lot of reactions as well to the interview I did with DP Ruto. And my God, so much responses to that. I needed to take leave, but I didn't. I came back to work. So when there's a complaint towards a media house, and I spoke earlier with David Omoyo, he was meant to call in, and he says he's not picking right now, but on this particular issue, there was a petition. I believe we're in a group that we all share, and there was a petition against Jeff Koinange to have him removed from RMS or to boycott RMS. But is this the route to follow and pursue, Eric, from your standpoint? Whenever someone is aggrieved with the work or disagrees with how we've gone about our job, is this the route to follow?
I don't think that is the route to follow. If the members of the public or anybody, even an institution, if you are not happy and you feel aggrieved by the work of a journalist or a media house, there is a procedure how you can seek redress. And we have the Media Council of Kenya, and within the Media Council of Kenya, we have the Complaints Commission with the registry, where you go there and you file a complaint, and there are commissioners there who will look at the matter, and they'll make a ruling on that particular matter. And it has actually worked. And actually, the case that actually has already, a case study that has already been used is the President Uhuru Kenyatta versus the Star, where he believed that the Star had unfairly reported some issues about him that he ought to have sought redress, and he went to the Media Council of Kenya. The complaint actually was, the matter was adjudicated, and actually he was even given an award that the Star actually was supposed to pay him. So that means that these systems are working, so that if there is anything that you feel that you can need to complain against the journalists, you can do that.
So KUJ is not involved in any way?
No, I think it's the law. I think the law allows the media regulator, the Media Council of Kenya, as the regulator that is given that big stick to work with and to ensure that all journalists actually abide by the code of conduct for the practice of journalism in Kenya, which is actually a law. So the journalist actually is supposed to do that. However, as a professional, I have the right actually to do a peer review of on the show of what Jeff was doing, and I say that me as a professional, I believe there is something that actually Jeff probably ought to have done, or he didn't, or he did. Okay. And in this particular matter, like I'm telling you, like the East African, we've done so many stories about South Sudan because that's our main subject. Yes. And we've done so many stories about Paul Malong, about what is happening in South Sudan. And personally, I'll tell you that that interview actually left me to ask my several questions whether Jeff had done research before he interviewed Paul Malong. But that is now, I'll say that as a professional colleague, I will be raising those particular issues that in me, as a colleague, I believe that maybe A, B, C, D actually were missing from this particular interview. But from the petition that is being prepared, I don't agree with that petition because there is a procedure that is stipulated in law which anybody who has any complaint against the media is supposed to follow, so that he or she can seek redress from that particular.
All right. Mutemi seems like he has something to say, real quick.
It's I don't know, a slippery slope. Who is the complainant again, like in the first case, and what are the details? Who's complaining about all these? The fact that someone, you know, a respected journalist like Jeff, someone and Kenyans have looked up to. I look at my family WhatsApp group and I see the disappointment. I look at conversations on social media and where people are like, you know, we are being taken for a ride. We are being treated like, you know, Kenyans, we are being treated like we don't matter, we don't think, we can't make you know, informed decisions. It's like, it's not something tangible. Like you can say Jeff has broken a certain law unless it's investigated and proven. But it's the people who follow him, who have followed that show of his for that long, feel like he has let them down. And, you know, how do you address that? How do you redress that?
But this doesn't warrant, you know, a move like that, a petition to get him off.
No, the thing is, the petition came from, it came from, I think, a member of public who feels like the other, you know, mechanisms like are not there. Like if you are to give statistics of what cases Media Council of Kenya has dealt with against journalists and what decisions they've made, then maybe this person felt like I'm not going to get justice there, so I need to use other. There are many mechanisms, so I need to use, you know, a petition is something. Yes. Or maybe they just wanted to create a sensation. They just wanted to get us talking about it.
Get us talking about
it. That's part of it.
But it sets a bad precedent if at all this is pursued. That's,
you know, that's a bad precedent, and actually it amounts to intimidation of journalists. Yes. If you believe that.
I don't think so. I don't think it's.
Why don't you agree? Why don't you agree with that one?
Let me just explain. Just explain, because I'm the one who is trying. Because once you do that, you'll be opening a floodgate whereby anybody who believes that if you don't like your face, as Mark Masai tomorrow.
You have to be accountable.
That's what I'm saying. That if I don't like your face tomorrow, Mark Masai, I'll also go and get my friends to sign a petition and say that we should get Mark Masai off here. So what we need to do, we need to look at issue. There's code of conduct for practice of journalism in this country, which is a law. We need to look at it and say that, Mark, you went against this particular, like I told you that the issue that we can talk about, when you're talking about Seto Olale, you talk about representation, when we say that according to the Code of Conduct of Journalism, he talks against a journalist disguising himself or herself to obtain information from someone if there is no justification. Yes. So that particular point, you can look at the Code of Conduct and say that you violated this. So like in this particular matter, if there is a complaint against Jeff, we should be told that Jeff went against this particular area in the Code of Conduct for the practice of journalism. So that is, we don't open floodgates where people will be using to intimidate journalists. We've seen there's been a lot of attacks against journalists. So if you open that gate, it means that everybody, if I don't like your face, I said, oh, Wanda, I don't like your face. You should be taken off here.
Wanda.
And that's where we just tell the public, if we have a problem with Jeff Koinange, this is the procedure for raising that complaint. So that's what we, the public, want to know. If we don't like the way he reports and we have a specific complaint against him, who do we address those complaints to? Personally, I think that I don't know about the journalistic code of ethics. Maybe I need to look at it. But that interview was so badly done because he was putting words in the mouth of the interviewee, telling him, when people do this to you, do you feel this? You know, and then of course the person says, yes, I feel like this and this. What do you, in fact, this is the part which you journalists should be talking about. He literally encouraged Malong to deal with John Alanamu. Twice he asked Malong, what are you going to do with this report now that it has been aired? Are you going to respond to it? In fact, I would think that journalists would have picked that up.
I think even answer that he's going to go to court.
Are you going to go to court? What are you going to do? So even journalists need to say something, because in fact, first I thought, you know, he's a fellow journalist. Why are you asking that question? You should be protecting John Alanamu, not encouraging Malong to go after him. Okay. But anyway, I have written an appeal to Media Council about a headline which I thought was very anti-women. I sent it, I even made it a public thing. I sent it to the Media Council on their email address. I never got a response. So if the Media Council wants the public not to put these petitions online and do witch hunts, then it also has to do its work. Can it respond to my complaints? Please, Media Council.
Mark, before Mutemi said, you should also know that actually Jeff already has a warning from the Media Council based on the interview he did with my leader, Francis Atwoli. You remember that? Yes, the Media Council did reprimand Jeff and actually wrote a complaint to the Royal Media Services, asking them, because you know this is self-regulation, asking the Royal Media Services to take action against Jeff before the external bodies actually take action. So you should also note that actually Jeff has already been served by a notice by the Media Council based on the previous interviews that he have done. And on this one, they've, you know, the CEO told me that they have written to him and to RMS warning on the same, and they have agreed that this would not, you know, be repeated and would not happen again. And it is a warning sign to even those who are looking up to people like our seniors like Jeff Koinange, that people are watching, and there is something that is working in terms of self-regulation. Definitely those online and the public are definitely watching, and so we need to be very careful. Mutemi, you want to say something as we conclude?
So I don't know how the media and KEJ is dealing with this phenomenon that started with the deregulation of mainstream media from the time when you just had VOK, then KBC. So FM stations came, and we had all these eloquent people who are not journalists going on air, on TV and on radio, and I think that's a phenomenon that has been with us, where we have you know, people who call themselves journalists, but they're not really journalists. They're just people who are very good. They speak good English to come on air.
Kizungu mingi.
Kizungu mingi. And I think that's the. I think my family. I saw Kizungu mingi on my WhatsApp group, family WhatsApp group. Somebody saying tunaongea Kizungu mingi. But I think because that has been with us, and I know there's some who went into this space because of eloquence, and then went back to school to train as journalists. Mm-hmm. But I know there's still others who are just, you know, guys who are eloquent. They don't know. You're talking about journalistic ethics. Mm-hmm. They've never been trained in them. So what are you doing to address that issue? But also, again, I'd like to say, what Kenyans are looking for, and in this case, what Kenyans want to see on Jeff's show is not some ragtag, general who's been, he's been expelled from South Sudan, and now he's catwalking around here in Kenya. We want to know why a railway is being built through the park in Nairobi. We want to know why a power plant, a coal power plant, is being built in Lamu that is gonna destroy Mpeketoni, an enclave of 40,000 Kikuyus who are dumped there by the first president of Kenya. We want to know, we want to know, such
evidence.
I'm asking if he has evidence.
Okay.
Yeah, but hey, there's documentation is there. It's just that you're not reporting it.
Okay.
There's by NEMA actually, you're not reporting it. Evidence whether they were dumped by Jomo Kenyatta or that it's going to destroy their lives.
Okay. You need to conclude your point here because
so those are the stories you want to see on your show here, on your shows. More than, as much as it's important to highlight the issue of the murders and seek justice for the victims, there are much bigger issues that you're dealing with as a country. Right now, this country is broke. It's broke. Amze was telling me he's worked in 4 regimes. He's worked in the Jomo Kenyatta regime, he's worked in the Moi regime, worked in the Kibaki regime, and this current regime. And he tells me for the first time, he's seen the government unable to pay its workers. As in, there's no money to pay staff, civil servants.
Right.
He's never seen that in his life. So even in the during the worst times of Moi, during the structural adjust programs, the government had money to pay staff. Those are the stories we want because they're affecting our lives.
Okay.
As much as, and I'm not saying these stories are not important, but we're asking. That's the reason I think someone would petition for Jeff to be, as much as that petition may not go anywhere,
yes,
but it's just striking and saying, you guys you're not catering for our needs as citizens.
We need to do a job.
And even our mental health and some of the decisions people are making, and even the rise in murders can be linked to the bad economic times. People are fighting and killing each other, and the men who have a lot of money are also, committing their own crimes, not just against society in terms of money, but also the people are being killed. So all these things are linked, and we need to talk about what is happening to us economically, because it's making us lose our minds. It's making us lose our morality and our sense of humanity, because we've become so desperate that we will do anything to be on the media, like that fellow who was swimming in dollars. But let me just also say something. The media must stop being like a polygraph for rich people. That every time rich people are accused of something, you bring the rich person to the media, and then we are supposed to watch and see them saying, no, it's not true, I'm innocent. And this argument, which I've heard it more than once, of rich people saying, I couldn't have stolen, otherwise I would have been arrested. Surely, we know that arresting is a political thing, and some people get away with literal murder.
Yes.
So this thing of when rich people are caught with their hands in the cookie jar, you call them to come and say, no, it's not true. Of course they're going to say, no, it's not true. So don't invite them. Don't invite them, because, and that is why Kenyans are saying you're becoming the laundry of rich people, because you shouldn't be inviting them on television. If Jeff was a proper journalist, he should have done an investigative report on South Sudan about the people who are suffering, not call some rich men swimming in dollars while their people are starving and being killed and raped. Then he says, what do you feel about this? Are you concerned about your image? No. I hope that report is taken to the media.
I think we agree with you, and as the media, we take these criticism and concerns very seriously. And if there are indeed concerns, like for me, I say that as a professional, I have issues with that interview.
Yes.
And that one I can have a conversation with Jeff as a professional colleague. That there are issues that I have with that interview. But if there are other members of the public who believe that actually Jeff did not do justice to that story or that interview, and maybe he was trying to mislead the public. I think that is against the code of conduct, and they can do that petition. Actually, let them direct that petition as a complaint to the Media Council of Kenya. Then now, like you are saying that you filed a complaint with the Media Council of Kenya, nothing happened. Then the matter can be taken out from there. Because me, as a leader in the media industry, I know that we are advocating so much so that we can have self-regulation in the media. And I think that's what we're doing. So that's why we have the Media Council of Kenya with the Complaints Commission. But again, the law also allows you that if you do, like you now, that you file that complaint, and if no action was taken, this matter can, then there's an appeal procedure that is a multimedia appeal tribunal that is hosted by CE. Again, you can take this matter there, and I think justice can be done if it was not done by the Media Council. So I think the process is there. We just need to follow that. So if we believe that the media is not doing its work, because the media, again, is supposed to help the society. If the media is not helping the society, then we shouldn't have that media in the first place. So if it's not doing that job, please report it to the Media Council of Kenya. If the Media Council, again, is not doing its job, also call it out. Say that, yes, the Media Council, we wanted the self-regulation. We gave you these powers in law so that you can help to adjudicate some of the complaints against the media, but you are not doing your job.
Okay. Thank you so much. We need to end it here because my producer will kill me. Speaking of my producer, she did get in touch with Jeff Koinange just to get a response from his side, but he decided not to. We respect that, and as you know, we respect his work. People are watching, Jeff. Your show is followed widely across the country, and people are watching. That's why the great response. And we hope across the board, this is a lesson, and we learn from our mistakes and we grow. And on this particular point, I will take the executive decision not to air the backstory today because it will still be timely, but we still have to have the radar, the international radar that will be on one of the stories that we followed over the weeks. New CCTV footage has emerged purportedly showing journalist Jamal Khashoggi, as I've heard him mentioned or pronounced, and his fiancée on the day he disappeared. This comes a day the Turkish government says the murder of the Saudi journalist inside Riyadh's Istanbul consulate was savagely planned, when another video showed Khashoggi's double leaving the consulate.
Footage obtained by Turkish broadcaster A News appears to show Khashoggi and his fiancée leaving their apartment in Istanbul Topkapi district and heading to the Saudi consulate. For weeks, Saudi Arabia denied knowledge of what happened to him, initially claiming Khashoggi left the building. Then later, Riyadh said Khashoggi, a former regime insider turned dissident, had been killed in a fistfight in the consulate. Before Riyadh's admission, Turkish sources said a team of 15 Saudis was sent to Istanbul and killed Khashoggi, who was a critic of the Crown Prince. The team is alleged to have interrogated, tortured, and decapitated Khashoggi, but a pro-government columnist wrote that Khashoggi was strangled to death before he was cut up into 15 pieces. In a turn of events, there has also been an emergence of CCTV footage published by CNN on Monday, which the American broadcaster claimed showed one of the Saudi officials acting as a body double for Khashoggi and leaving the consulate. A senior Turkish official quoted by CNN said that the Saudi was brought to Istanbul to act as a body double for Khashoggi. The man in the video, named by CNN as Mustafa Al-Madani, left the consulate by the back exit wearing what appeared to be Khashoggi's clothes, although the shoes do not match those the journalist appeared to be wearing in CCTV footage of him entering the consulate. Indonesian President Joko Widodo has called for a transparent and thorough investigation of Khashoggi's death at a meeting on Monday with Saudi Arabia's foreign minister. Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim-majority country, maintains close ties with Saudi Arabia and has expressed concern over the killing at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Khashoggi's killing has drawn international criticism, prompting the kingdom to describe it as a huge grave mistake, while adding that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had not been aware of the case. Prosecutors are seeking statements from a total of 45 employees. It is also said that 18 Saudis were arrested in connection with his death, and 2 top aides of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, as well as 3 other intelligence agents, fired. Khashoggi, a Saudi national and a U.S. resident, went missing after entering the consulate to obtain documents for his upcoming marriage.
Stuff that you only see in movies, but is actually happening. So sad what happened to Khashoggi, and we don't know if we'll get to the bottom of this in terms of the truth with all the twists and the cover-ups that we have had over the last 1 week. But we'll keep an eye on this story. Thank you, Erick Odour. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Dr. Wanda Njoya. And thank you, Mutemi wa Kiama. The first time, and I hope not the last, that you were on Press Pass. And the Lionheart, you say Erick Odour seems to be contented with what the media airs. Don't respond. The guy with the locks, Mutemi, and the lady actually makes sense. Good panel, great topics, and don't refrain yourself, bro. You have one life to live. Make it count. I will by being back here next week, hopefully, if you promise to join me. Thank you to Rosalia Karanja, who's also helped me in production of this episode and put together the international radar, and the gentlemen behind the cameras you don't see and they don't get the credit. And also Arnold, who is tired of hearing my voice. I'm gone. Good night.